My name's Isaac Hamlet. My pseudonym is R.E.B. Bellesmith, and I'm the author of The Wilderlands.
My name is Rae Witte, and I am a narrator and the narrator for the Wilderlands.
I was wondering, how did you decide to get into acting, into voice acting? What is your intro into this world?
Well, I've been acting for about 20 years. I got involved in high school, and then continued in college. I did a lot of community theater. I did a lot of academic theater, and in the area that I'm in, there's just not really professional theater available. And I have two young children, so difficult to be away for 4 hours a night, 5 days a week. And so I got to poking around online and I was like, okay, voice acting is a thing that people do, and I can do that at whatever time. So I built my I built myself a very nice booth
Oh.
before doing anything at all. And then I got the equipment, and so, I'm already like $2,000 into this with no experience and started doing audio drama. I started taking a lot of courses to learn about marketing and the different genres of voiceover. Um, I did do some stuff with commercial that was really cool, but it felt really big.
Mm.
And then I looked at narration and I'm like, okay, well, that's, a lot closer to voice acting, the audio drama side. So let's give that a shot. And that's where I'm at right now.
I love the building the booth before you get into anything, because
Oh,
I feel like that's sort of my impulse as well. It's like, well, I need to make sure before I even start doing anything that I'm.
exactly. It's like what if you get that big shot and your space isn't ready? So you might as well just have it all.
So I guess you've done like a number of podcasts. I wasn't sure, was did this end up being your first audiobook? Have you done other audiobooks?
Yes, officially. So I am in one other full cast audiobook that was just released. I recorded for that a year before Wilderlands. And so I'm just one of the characters in that one. And then yeah, Wilderlands came along and that's my first solo endeavor for narrating.
I guess that I guess brings me to wondering, when you were approaching the Wilderlands, I guess as your first full solo endeavor, how did you decide to approach it? Because I don't know how I would, like, if I'm like, okay, I've got a book and I'm going to be everyone and everything in it, and what was your method?
I've done character voices in the past, but this was, I mean, 20 characters, I want to say, roughly, and
Yeah.
some of them much smaller, mostly men. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, and so I was like, okay, well, especially considering that there's so many male characters, I want to make sure that they're distinct and consistent. So I went through and I recorded Nelk, all of Nelk, and then I recorded all of Red and just threw that way and then pieced it back into like the main narration of it. Um, and then Dorena, of course, recorded her through the ending, and that was an experience as well, which I probably shouldn't say anything more about.
So, in terms of that approach to character, did you read through front to back at first, or was it like, okay, I'm going to follow this character through first, and then this character through first, is kind of.
So I mostly did. I searched through the document at least. I didn't have the second part and third part of the book when I started recording. At least not your final drafts.
Yeah.
So, I did enough, especially like Roderick, his voice was horrendous. And so in choosing his voice, I was like, okay, where does this guy end up? Like, how long do I have to commit to this? And so in making those choices, I at least skimmed through to make sure, is he going to stay back here or whatever. It ain't true what I said about you, Roderick eventually said. Nay, you're no coy wolf. When a coy wolf steals a stray morsel from his starving kin, it's to satisfy his own hunger. But you're worse. You'd snatch away mead, meat, or man, not to satisfy yourself, but to spite those who elsewise might have been pleasured.
I will not challenge your claim, but by all gods, even them being dead or false, I pray that girl brings you more pain than peace of mind.
Is that I know when I've listened to things,
Mhm.
because I'll do, again, for work, I'll do interviews and I'll have to listen back through to what the conversation sounds like. And it's probably the worst experience of any given day for me. It's just hearing myself talk. But of course, you're doing it as a voice actor. Do you like the sound of your own voice? What is that like for you?
Not particularly. No. Um, no. But you sort of become numb to it, like you do anything else. And so it's more, when you listen back, it's like, am I getting the emotion of the character or not? And so that way you stop picking apart specifically the sound that you're hearing and more, am I am I bringing the meaning across? And so that's what you start to listen to more than anything else. And there are the picky things of like, again, my voice didn't sound like that 3 days ago, and so now I have to try to sound the same as I did. But by and large, you kind of let it go after a while because you have to.
Did you have any, I guess, characters or scenes that you were like that you particularly liked voicing, or that you were like, oh, this is really interesting how I approach this character?
I had so much fun with Blaze. Like,
Ah.
oh, it was especially, you know, the bird speaks for him, but it's not the bird voice, it's his voice, except he's kind of become the bird. And I was like, okay, this but
I I'm glad that's the case. I'll let you finish, because I realized as I was handing it off, I was cute and I named the bird I, and I was like, I don't
yes.
know if that tracks to audiobook. I think you did a good job trying to distinguish when it was EYE and the letter I, because there's the sentence where it's like I speaks for me, but I am not I, and it's
Yup.
just I was like that wasn't targeted at you, and I'd like to apologize for it.
Mind not my mouth, the crow cawed. I fed him my own flesh, and now he knows my mind. Dorena looked from wizard to bird. Am I speaking to the wizard or the crow? The wizard turned a finger faceward, and the crow spoke. I am the wizard Blaze Scliv. Then the finger turned to the bird, and again the crow spoke. The bird is I. At times I go without him, but I does not go without me.
That was good. I had so much fun working on that character. I really enjoyed that.
What was, yeah, I guess when you're approaching a character like that, where it's
Mhm.
like, okay, as you said, I'm doing a bird voice, but with the infliction maybe of a human
Mhm.
person of some sort. What was your thought process for how to approach that?
I guess, I mean, I read a lot of kids' books for my children, right? And so you're
Mm.
doing all the crazy voices. And so the thought was like, okay, it's like the witch characters or something like that, but just a little more grounded because this is, more a YA novel. And so it's like, okay, well, let's humanize that just a little bit, but keep some of the fun. And, there's a little bit of madness in there too. So it's like, okay, this, we've got some room with this character, but let's still not make it too jarring to someone listening or too outrageous that it's like this guy doesn't belong in this book. What's happening?
Was that
So
ever? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, please go.
Was that ever the case where you found, either with that character or others, where you're like, I need to rein this person in a little bit more, this voice in a little bit more?
The only one I had to rein in was I really wanted a lot more gravel to Nalk's voice, but then of course realizing like he's in it for the long haul, I was like, nope, I've got to be able to continue saying these words. So, and that's when I kind of, just slowed him down a little bit more to let him contrast with Red, who was maybe a little more impulsive and that kind of a vibe. So, that was
Yeah,
the only one that I had to like really dial back.
this question feels too much like patting myself on the back, but I am curious for the overall like voice of the book in terms of
Mhm.
it is a very speaky book. It is a book that the characters in the book are hearing out loud.
Mhm.
So the words are very weird. Was that a, was that challenging for you as a voice actor? Was that annoying for you as a voice actor? Was it, yeah, what did you think when you kind of saw this text and were like, oh, a lot of these words are a little bit nonsense?
I actually really enjoyed it. So a lot of my background in acting is in Shakespeare, and so that part of it felt pretty natural to me. Obviously there wasn't the meter and things like that, but the playfulness with words was a lot of fun, and then just the way you wrote it as intended, it's it's meant to be spoken. And so it flowed very nicely, which was good. Like the language never felt clunky, it felt natural. And so it was a joy to narrate for me. Um, and the extra words and the creativity with those was just some icing on top. I loved it.
That is good to hear. I did at one point, and I didn't do this because it would have taken me 20 years to write. I was like, maybe I should invent a meter or a form for this book or this world. And I think I tried to do that for about 2 pages, and I was like, yeah, this would take the rest of my life if I
This
did
would be my
that.
masterwork.
Were there any favorite interactions you had between the characters?
I really enjoyed the interactions between Zachariah and Dorena, just because it was fun to be really sassy for a little bit, like with those two speaking to each other. And so those were probably some of my favorite interactions between characters.
The sarcasm that hadn't occurred to me. The sarcasm does go really through the roof when they're both in a scene together.
Yep. Yep,
They
it is catty and wonderful, and I loved it.
I flinch away from dealing death to others. Liar, she said, slamming her fists on the table, rattling food and wine. You killed my father! You took everything from him! I maintained our system of governance, my dear. I didn't kill your father. You think it murder? I think it's suicide. Or incompetence. Take your pick.
In asking your questions, you've covered probably a lot of the questions that I had of, because I read it obviously, but we really didn't speak during the process much aside from me saying, hey, if I really take something in the wrong direction here, let me know. Um, but yeah, just I guess if there were any things in the story that maybe I took in a different direction than you anticipated or
Oh yeah,
anything like
that
that.
that's a really good question because I'll say off the top, it was interesting for me listening to it because I think that's the closest I could possibly get to like reading it myself for the first time. Like that was kind of the initial thing that struck me was I was like, oh, like I've written this book for like 5 years, but I haven't read this book. So
Get to enjoy it.
right, yeah, no, it was really like I didn't have to be too critical of it because you did such a wonderful job. I was just like, okay, no, I'm kind of just in it for the experience, and it was the worst part was going through and marking stuff and just being like, oh, okay, now we're here. Like, and when I legitimately just wanted to listen to you perform it, I think that in terms of a different direction than what I had intended. I mean, you mentioned the wizard, and I think that probably because I had no concept. Again, it feels like a very mean assignment I gave you because the way the wizard started was I had Blaze speaking phonetically, which would have made even less sense. So it would have been like UYOO and
Oh,
uh, yeah,
thank
and
you for changing that.
and a lot of people were like, Isaac, you need to stop that. And I was like, no, no, I'm doing something. And then a lot more people said, Isaac, this is the main problem here. And I was like, okay.
You're like,
And
fine then.
and so I had my brother recommend I ran it by my younger brother and he was like, well, wizards have like familiars, maybe you just give them one of those. And I was like, oh, perfect, easy fix actually.
Got it.
So I'd never. It probably would have been like a month or two before you got it. I hadn't really imagined the crow being there.
Mhm.
So when I did it, I definitely didn't have an idea of what the crow sounded like or what it
Right.
would. Because in my head, it was probably just like like a cawing, and I think you kind of nailed it because I certainly can't do what you were doing, but it was kind of like a very like seems spoiling. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't quite as crackly, and I
Mhm.
thought it worked really, really well for this is a man, but it is also not a, a person. This is a crow that is doing this voice, this sound,
Mhm.
um, in in a way that did really surprise me.
In going through all the education that I mentioned, going into voiceover and things like that, and everyone's like, if you're gonna do narration, it's just kind of the thing that happens. You're gonna do awful books, and your first like 15 books are gonna be the worst thing you've ever read, and you're gonna hate every second of it, but keep going. And I was like, no. I tell people like, "Oh yeah, I got this book," and they were like, "Oh, how was it?" And I was like, "It was tremendous. Like I could not have asked for a better book to start off on." And so I appreciate that, and all of my appreciation to you for writing such an awesome story because it was just fantastic from start to finish. I loved it.
Yeah, thank you for your enthusiasm the whole time too, because again, it's been a long, long process getting it out. So
5 years is a long time.
yeah, but even for you at this point, it's been a year since you
Yeah.
recorded it. So it's like, oh yeah, that's still still coming eventually. And it was done, I say, but yeah, yeah,
Getting there. And are
nice.
you working on something else now or just
Oh,
taking a moment?
I'm working on, oh boy. I'm working on two or three other things right now because I am physically unable to take a moment even when I
Mhm.
should. Um, so I've got like a YA fantasy series that I initially did, and that was like me going like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna write stuff. And I feel that I owe it to a version of myself to finish that. So that's kind of a slow thing I'm working through
Mhm.
and putting together. And then I've got another adult fantasy book that I'm getting together. Again, very, very slowly, mostly because it's just again, you're on the voice acting side too, so it's you know that it's all creative and it doesn't necessarily pay great.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
doing it because you enjoy doing it, and the the money is not necessarily there to like support doing as much of it as you
Nope.
would like to.
The money definitely can't be the reason you start.
Yeah.
It's because it's not gonna work.
It's a thing that I knew going in and continue to realize and remember every day. So yeah, I'm working on those two. I know someone asked me, a couple people have asked me like, well, is there anything after the Wilderlands? And I've like got stuff in mind, but at the same time, it's such an endeavor writing in that voice and in that language for so long.
Yeah.
Honestly, again, hearing you do it, I was like, well, if Rae would do a sequel, then then maybe I can justify it to myself. But
Absolutely. I would spend
yeah.
as much time as you want in this universe.
Oh, thank
Go
you.
for it.
Well, that might move that up my priority list. But yeah, my hope that was that this would be self-contained, and I think it more or less works, and I'm hoping to get other stuff out there too. What about you in terms of other stuff that you're working on? I mean, I know you mentioned you've got another audiobook. I think you're on a couple of podcasts.
Mhm.
Um,
So the Audio Publishers Association does this program called the New Narrator Mentorship Program, where they team new narrators up with seasoned narrators to sort of help guide you. I mean, it's more or less one-on-one coaching, but sponsored through the APA. And so I started that program in March or April. Um, I'm working with a narrator. Her name is Brenda Waslow, and she is phenomenal. It's been such a blessing working with her. And so she's got me working on samples to fill out my website. I've added, I think, 4 samples already in the month that I've been working with her. And then, coaching on, hey, you got to do social media. Let's spiff up your website, things like that. So really preparing to start doing outreach to like indie publishers, larger publishers, and things like that. I've filled out some of my online profiles to hopefully get more auditions and things. So I'm still doing audio drama. I'm still auditioning for audio drama regularly, but just sort of shifting my focus to narration to see where that can go.
Oh, dang. Is that ultimately what you would like to mostly focus on, is audiobook narration specifically?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, animation, games, things like that, they seem like a lot of fun, but they're so quick, and
Mm.
it's the style and the way they're recorded is quite detached from the story arc of what you're doing, like acting for film versus acting on stage. And I really like feeling that movement of the whole story as you go through it. So it's just a little less appealing to me than audiobooks or audio drama where you get to experience that arc as the character is doing it.
Yeah, because I was going to say you're in like a long form podcast, to like a long form narrative podcast, I think too, or
A few, yeah. So I
oh,
just
okay,
did
yeah.
Observable Radio, just released. It's called The Green Tunnel, and that one is about 45 minutes long. Um, and they've been doing like one-off shows as they're working on their second season. And then everything else is like installments. I'm on the Modus Files, and that's a very long-running uh Fallout themed show. So there's that. That's long form. We ended What's in the Rift a while ago. Heart Glass is about to come out. So, yeah.
You still do them. That's still a lot of things. I was like, oh, I was like, you're in 1 or 2, right? And then you gave me like 5 or 6 things, and I was like, oh, okay,
Like,
yeah,
all
yeah,
right, I know. I just went to this APA social and they were like, "So what are you working on?" And I'm like, basically nothing." And then I was like, that's not true."
yeah. And this is after, I know you said it at the start, like 5 years or something at this point
Uh,
of focusing.
3 years of voiceover.
Oh, wow.
Um and one of those was mostly the education, learning how to use this guy and use the recording software and all that. And of course, continuing to learn because audiobook audio is different than what I send for my audio drama stuff and everything. So that first year of learning and then sort of getting into it and just growing from there.